What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to talk about the overall markets. We just got the PPI report that came out, not to mention other pieces of data that are going to be affecting the markets. But just notes that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. Anyways, the question is what's happening with the markets. In my personal opinion, I think that with this release from the PPI report, I would say the data is a little bit mixed overall, and this could cause a little bit of a dip temporarily in the markets. But I don't think the dip is going to last forever. I think we will dip a bit and then we will get a nice bounce after that. So I'm going to break down exactly why I believe that and some big factors involving these charts. So for the PPI report that came out about 10 minutes ago, PPI month over month for all items was at 0.2%. Obviously, it's not bad, but it's actually slightly above the consensus in the forecast of 0.1%. So it's a little bit above that, but not that bad. It's only by about 0.1%, which is just, once again, not bad. It's very close, just slightly above that. Core PPI month over month was at 0.3%, a little bit above the consensus in the forecast as well, between 0.2 and 0.1%. So this was also a little bit above expectations to a very, very tiny extent. So the month over month data was so-so. However, um, core PPI year over year was at 2.4%. That is aligned with expectations. And then PPI year over year for all items was at 1.7%, aligned with expectations. So most of the PPI data was pretty good. Half of it was so-so. Not bad whatsoever. It's still, once again, decent overall. For initial jobless claims, this was also at about this 230,000 area. This is aligned with expectations. So most of the data that came out was aligned with expectations, with the exception being PPI month over month and core PPI month over month being slightly higher, but that's just fine. It's a very, very tiny little slight edge. Now at 11:30 a.m. we have some bill auctions coming out, the 4 and 8 week bill auctions. So we'll see what else that leads to. The market is also anticipating FOMC. That's the next major catalyst coming out next week, in less than a week from now. The market thinks there's an 83% chance we get a 25 basis point cut and about a 17% chance we get 50 basis points. For headlines about the market, I'm not really seeing much. We're seeing a lot of talk about the volatility right now. And besides that, I didn't see anything else that was too crazy. There have been some talks about how certain companies like Moderna are trying to cut a lot of expenses by over $1.1 billion. And that's it. There's been new headlines about alliances between GM and Hyundai, but I didn't see anything else that was too wild. Even like for Tesla, I am seeing a lot of talk from analysts that are actually talking about whether or not Tesla is a car company. It's pretty obvious. Tesla is a car company for the most part right now because the majority of their revenue comes from cars, but it has the potential to develop into something very different, from developing AI, developing robots, and their robotics sector could even surpass that of their car sector, believe it or not. When they start, producing these humanoid robots, even the robotaxi, that could be like another big product for them. So once again, I think that we are a car company for now, but as time goes on, this could change depending on the next products that come out. Yes, Tesla is not only a car company, they're mainly one because that's their main revenue stream, but there's other sectors they are developing. But once again, that could change over time. Their revenue could be broken up into different components, and the car component may not be the main revenue source as years go on, and that's the reason why in the future it may not solely be a car company. Nowadays it is not solely a car company either. It's developing a lot of things. It's just that the car industry is so much bigger for them, and that sector could change as time goes on. So I just wanted to call that out. So anyways, as far as Tesla goes, what do I see for the chart right now during the pre-market session? We're looking at support at 225. We have this resistance to watch for at 228. If 225 fails, I could see Tesla dip down to 222. If not, it's 220. But then I don't think Tesla's just going to go crashing down like crazy. I think we're just going to dip a little bit. And I think that we're going to get bought back up very soon off one of these supports. So notably between 222 and 218, we have our 20 and 50 EMAs. We could dip a little bit into this range before we try to rebound, so watch for that very, very carefully. But like I said, I'm not expecting this to dump too hard. I think we will get bought back up. So make sure you watch 225, 222. That's where our 20 EMA is. And then 218 is our 50 EMA. And the trend line at this 215 area as our supports. We could be dipping all the way down to, the lower 220s, if not closer to our 50 EMA. And then Tesla could rebound again because overall this thing is still making higher lows for the last couple of weeks. So we could dip a bit, then try to rebound. Tesla will be fine, guys. And then I think even approaching the FOMC, we're going to be bullish. We might start off a little bearish for now, but then we're going to turn back to bullish very soon once we get closer to FOMC. As far as SPY goes, we pumped all the way up to 556, but then after PPI came out a little bit mixed, I think that we could dip a little bit. So we're looking at 555 as our support. If that does not hold, we're looking for 553. If that doesn't hold, we're going back down to about the 550 area. Now, that's also where the breakout happens to be, this 549 to 550 area. Technically speaking, if charts do dip down to the breakouts, we do tend to bounce off of those. That could be an area where SPY is going to bounce. So there could be a little dip coming before we try to rebound. We also have resistance at 558 and 560. After jumping so hard yesterday, we did continue to go higher today to 556. That's the level I called out yesterday. But now we're looking like we might dip just a little bit, could dip just a bit before we continue higher. So that's what I anticipate to be the most likely possibility. So for now, we're going to be looking for this 555 level, see if this holds on SPY. If not, we're looking for 553, then eventually us to come down to about this range of the EMAs closer to the 550 area. But then if we do dip all the way down there, we should bounce again. So don't turn overly bearish. This could just be another entry point. For ES, it's the same thing essentially. This is it went all the way up to 5580, came a little bit short of the 5600 area, so it could dip just a bit. We'll be looking at 5550s our main support. If that fails us, we're looking for 5530. We have resistance at 5580, not to mention 5600, so we could dip a little bit to 5550 and maybe a little bit lower. Then we could try to rebound after that. So watch and see how things end up developing. For Nvda, in my personal opinion, hit this resistance all the way up towards this 118 area, and we have support around 115, not to mention this 112 to 111 zone as well. So I could be looking for a dip back down to 115. If that fails us, we're going down to about this zone down here. Then we could be looking for a rebound after that to continue to push higher. I think Nvidia may dip just a bit, then tries to rebound, and we'll be watching to see how things end up going, at least moving forward. That's going to be very, very critical for the way things develop, especially as we have this nice cup that's forming. So I think ultimately Nvidia will go back to bullish. It will try to get back up to the 120s. But before we do that, we might dip a little bit to these EMAs. We might just get a little bit of a pullback to get ready for the next big pump that's coming, approaching FOMC, in my opinion. For Bitcoin, we're looking at resistance around this 59,000 area. We have support currently around 57,000 flats to about 56,800. And if that fails us, we're looking for about the 56,000 flats area. So I presume what's going to happen is we dip down to the EMAs and like the 56,000s. Then we could consolidate for a bit and then eventually try to bounce higher. And eventually, I think Bitcoin will pump even more. But we could start off on a weekend before we try to continue to push higher. So watch for that. Once again, for Tesla, it's a similar trend. I anticipate it's going to dip a little bit more before it tries to bounce. So far, if it dips a little bit, we're going to be fine. As long as we don't lose like 210, we're going to be completely fine. So it might dip a little bit more before it tries to get that bounce. For NQ, we have this resistance around this 19,300 area. We have support 19,250. That fails us. We're looking for 19,100, then 19,000 flat, followed by 18,850. So I think we could be dipping just a bit to get closer to this breakout zone, to the lower 19,000s. Then we could try to bounce off that and continue higher later on. So I anticipate we will be testing at least 19,100 before we try to rebound. So look for a little bit of a dip before we continue to bounce. For the QQQ, we came just short of the 472 targets. We're only at 470, so it's okay. If we do dip a little bit, we're looking at support at 468. If that fails us, we're looking for 466, followed by 463. And if that doesn't hold us, we're going to likely return all the way down to the 460 area. The breakout area is closer to like 458 to 460. So we could dip just a little bit on here to about 465, if not the lower 460s. Then we could rebound and try to continue to push higher to the imbalance around that 474 area. So we might dip a little bit, then try to rebound. That's what I find to be the most likely possibility. For Apple, Apple's trying to push for 223.8. That's going to be our resistance. Our support to watch for is going to be at 222.5, followed by 220. We're actually holding up a lot better than the markets. I think we might consolidate a bit, maybe tip just a little bit, but it's going to do a good job at holding up before it continues higher. So it might just be a small little dip before anything else, but I think it's doing a good job at holding up. For the IWM Russell 2000, same thing. I think that we've already bottomed at 204 for the time being. We could see a little bit of a dip back down to 208, maybe a little bit lower before it tries to continue to push to 212. But overall, it's going to be doing a good job. For Coinbase, it's the same setup essentially. We could be retesting 156 consolidates in this range for a little bit longer before we see a breakout for that 160, 165 area. For Amazon, we could be dipping just a bit. We had 185 as resistance. If we do dip a little bit more, we could be looking for a test of about the 182s. So it might dip just a bit. But then I think Amazon, we could be forming a larger cup and handle. So this could just be a retest of support before it continues higher into like the higher 180s later on next week. So I think we might dip just a little bit. 182 could be coming if not 180. And we'll see if we get a bounce after that. I'll be watching that very carefully. Meta is actually holding up very well. There's no sign of it declining yet. So there's no sign of it dipping much. It has potential to actually push to about 520 if we manage to hold above 512. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. We could dip a bit and continue for that 520 target. Then we'll see how things develop from there. For Microsoft, we pushed all the way up to about 425. This is the target I had. And now it's starting to dip. So if we do continue to dip, if we don't hold 422, we're looking for basically the 419.75 area, our 200 EMA. If that fails us, we could be dipping all the way down to about this 416 target before it tries to rebound. So I think we might be dipping to at least 419, possibly lower, and then we try to rebound after that. So watch to see if that ends up being the case. For Google's trying to rebound as well. We're looking at 153 as our support. And the main resistance to watch for is going to be around this 155 area, not to mention 157.5. So if Google could try to hold above our 20 EMA 153, we have the potential to go all the way up to about 157. It could even outperform the market. If we don't hold above 153, we could be tipping back down to 150 before we continue to go higher. So either it's going to be, continuing to pump, or dips just a little bit before it continues higher anyways. But this is looking more bullish to me. As far as Tesla goes, I think that we're on an uptrend overall. So if you actually zoom out for the short term, I'm not talking about the last few years. I'm just talking about since August, we've been making higher highs and higher lows. If you actually look at this trend, so I presume that we might be making another higher low before we continue to push higher. So look for a little bit of a dip on Tesla before we get that bounce. I find that to be the most likely possibility. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. That's my analysis for now. I'll be back in a couple of hours for another update. Until then, thank you and peace out.